Oh, now this is rich. No more work. Can you hear that? The silence in your soul when the grind stops. When the clanking chains of 9 to 5 suddenly fall off with a clang so loud it wakes your ancestors. No more alarms screaming at 6 a.m. No more pretending to care in meetings filled with hollow words and forced laughs. No more chasing cheese in a maze built by someone else where you were just the little rat running in circles thinking it meant something. No more work, he said. Just like that, not a question, not a warning, an order. And what do you do when the voice that made the stars suddenly says, "That's enough"? Ah, you were never just what you did, you were always more, but they don't tell you that, do they? No, they give you a title, a task, a little laminated name tag, and just like that, poof, your identity gets sealed inside a cubicle, behind a screen, under a fluorescent light that hums like a lullaby for the dead. You start thinking that's who you are. The job, the desk, the numbers, the hustle. You start measuring your worth in completed tasks, promotions, and how many unread emails you conquered before lunch. Funny, isn't it? The way they package slavery and call it ambition. See, they love it when you forget who you are. Makes you easier to manage, easier to manipulate. You're less dangerous that way. Because if you really wake up and realize you were never meant to be just a cog in their pretty little machine, well, then the whole system starts to shake. You're not supposed to ask questions like, what if my life isn't about climbing a ladder someone else built? Or what if I was made for something more than clocking in and out like a wind-up toy with a tie? But those questions, oh, they fester, they itch. Deep inside, under the skin, like a splinter of truth you can't pull out. You start feeling it, don't you? That quiet dissatisfaction in your chest. The dull ache of a dream you abandoned years ago, buried under paychecks and performance reviews. And then, when the work stops, when the boss stops calling, the deadlines disappear, and the calendar goes blank, suddenly there's space. And in that space, a mirror. Not one of those pretty ones in department stores. No, this one shows everything, the cracks, the chaos, the real you. Oh, and it's scary. Because if you're not what you do, then who the hell are you? You've spent years building a mask, layer by layer, made of accolades and busy days, and now it starts to peel. You catch your own reflection and realize you barely recognize it. You see a stranger blinking back, not the professional, not the worker, not the role, just a human. Fragile, brilliant, confused, free. And that freedom, oh, it burns because it means choice. And choice means responsibility. No more hiding behind the job, no more blaming the hours or the hustle. Now it's just you, and the terrifying possibility that you were born for something wildly different than what you've been doing. That maybe, just maybe, your value was never attached to how much you produce or how tired you feel at the end of the day. Maybe your worth was always there, untouched, unmoved, waiting beneath all that noise for you to finally stop and feel it. But society doesn't clap for stillness. It doesn't throw parades for peace. It applauds the burnout, the exhaustion, the glorified suffering. It hands you medals for surviving misery and calls it success. You were conditioned to think that your grind was noble, that your stress was a badge of honor. And now, with all of that stripped away, what's left? Just a soul. Bare, beating, buzzing with potential. The funny part, you never needed permission to be more. You never needed their validation, their metrics, their pats on the back. You always had something bigger brewing inside, something the spreadsheets couldn't calculate. But it's hard to hear the truth when you're drowning in deadlines. It's hard to see the light when your eyes are glued to screens. And now the fog is lifted. The silence has moved in. And all the distractions are gone. You were never just what you did. You were the fire they tried to put in a box. You were the spark they buried under schedules. You were the voice they told to hush while they handed you a script. But deep down in the quiet, you remember. You remember the way your heart used to beat when no one was watching. You remember the dreams that kept you up at night, the wild ones, the reckless ones, the ones that made you feel alive and terrified at the same time. You remember that somewhere along the way, you traded your wonder for a paycheck, your passion for a routine, your soul for survival. And now, Now there's nothing left to hide behind. So now you're panicking. Of course you are. They said no more work, and suddenly you don't know what to do with your hands, your mind, your minutes. You've been so used to the noise, haven't you? The buzz, the clatter, the illusion of importance wrapped in urgent emails and alarms screaming for your attention. And now it's quiet. Quiet enough to hear your own thoughts again. That's the real terror, isn't it? Not the silence itself, but what it reveals. You never built your life, you built a schedule. And that schedule became your life. Wake up, wear the costume, put on the performance, check the boxes, go to bed. Repeat. You weren't living, you were maintaining a role. And now the script's gone. The spotlight is off. No more applause for your suffering. No more certificates of burnout achievement. No more deadlines to distract you from yourself. Now you're staring into the blank space where your identity used to sit, and it's laughing at you. Because that space, that void, that's freedom, baby. And freedom is ugly before it's beautiful. Oh, but they didn't prepare you for this part, did they? They taught you how to work, how to obey, how to keep yourself just busy enough to not question why. But they never taught you how to be, how to sit still and look inward, how to measure your day in smiles, not spreadsheets, how to feel worthy when no one is watching you grind yourself into dust. Because if they taught you that, well, you wouldn't need them anymore. And they need you to need them. That's the trick. But now the leash is cut. No more little gold stars for your suffering. No more pretending you're okay just because you hit your productivity goals. It's just you now. Just raw, unedited, glitching human energy sitting in a room with all the dreams you've ignored. And they're getting louder. That book you never wrote, screaming. That passion you called impractical, laughing in your face, that wild, rebellious part of you that wanted something more than this gray, polished cage. Oh, it's dancing now, because you can't unhear the truth once it's whispered. This isn't unemployment, this is rebirth. You're not jobless, you're limits. But they don't want you to know that. They want you to feel shame. They want you to scroll, to compare, to spiral. Because if you wake up and realize you're free, really free, the whole system trembles. The machine doesn't run without your submission. Your anxiety was their fuel. Your discontent was their profit. So what happens when you stop playing? Now here's the real joke. Most people spend their whole lives waiting for this moment, the break, the pause, the open door, but when it comes, they panic. They run back to the cage. They beg for the chains. Because at least in the cage, they knew the rules. Out here, it's chaos, beautiful, electric, terrifying chaos, can't be monetized, can't be filed or organized or tamed. But you were chaos once. Before the rules, before the resume, before the real world sucked the fire out of you. You see, this isn't the end of the road, it's the end of their road, and now you get to build your own. But don't expect it to be easy. Freedom has a price. It demands discomfort. It demands self-reflection. It demands you look in the mirror and ask, what do I want? Not what your parents wanted, not what your boss expected, not what the algorithm told you to crave you. And that's the scariest question of all, isn't it? Because if you answer honestly, you might have to burn everything you built just to start again with your own blueprint. So go ahead. Mourn the identity you lost. Grieve the routine. Cry for the structure, but don't stay there, because there's something wild waiting beneath all that control. Something ancient, something furious, something alive. And it's been locked in a file cabinet of your soul, suffocating under maybe later sin not good enough said. And now it's stretching its legs. That's the real revolution. Not quitting the job. Not leaving the system. No, the revolution is remembering who you were before you needed permission to exist, before you believed you had to earn rest, before you were taught that your value was equal to your output. You are not a machine. You were never designed to be efficient. You were designed to feel, to create, to love, to scream, to build something so unreasonable it makes the world uncomfortable. Because true freedom isn't polite. It doesn't follow instructions. It doesn't clock in. It kicks the door off its hinges and paints the walls with madness. And baby, now the paint is in your hands. Number 3. The one nobody sees coming. You've been distracted by the noise, the glitter, the circus of life, where everyone's juggling their lies like they're flaming swords and no one dares drop a single one. But here's the thing, sooner or later those lies get heavy, and someone's going to trip. Could be you, could be them. But let's assume for a moment it's you. What happens when the spotlight flickers and you realize everything you were told was one grand illusion with a twisted sense of humor? They told you pain builds character, but forgot to mention it also builds walls. Big ones, the kind that keep out the light and trap in the scream. You dressed it up, made it presentable, called it coping. But underneath the grin, the make do, the I'm fine, was a storm wearing your face. And now, that storm's knocking hard, because pain, when ignored, doesn't fade, it mutates. It hides in your habits, your fake laughs, your autopilot routines. It becomes the shadow behind your smile. Oh, you've met it. Every time you say yes when your bones are begging you to say no. Every time you shrink yourself to fit someone else's comfort zone. That's the shadow pulling your strings. You keep waiting for a moment when it all makes me. But here's the sick joke, it never aligns. There is no grand reward ceremony at the end of the tunnel. No medal for endurance, no gold star for staying silent. All there is now, this moment. And you, stripped of roles, mask off. What are you going to do when no one's watching? When the lights stop? When the applause dies out? When the mask no longer sticks to your skin because the sweat of truth is too thick, there's something inside you clawing for attention. It doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about your curated persona. It just wants out. It wants you to stop pretending you're okay with mediocrity. It wants you to stop playing nice with your own destruction. You can dress up your fear in 1,000 excuses and call it responsibility, but it's still fear. You can wrap your rage in politeness and call it patience, but it's still rage. And if you don't acknowledge it, if you don't sit with it, it will eat you from the inside out while you smile through your teeth like everything's fine. The world worships the calm, the composed, the ones who make chaos look aesthetic. But no one tells you how ugly healing is, how loud truth can get, how raw freedom tastes when you haven't chewed on it in years. You want to break through, right? Everyone does. But no one wants the breakdown that comes first. No one wants the unraveling, the shedding, the demolition of who you pretended to be. But you can't rise without crumbling first. That's the toll. That's the ritual. That's the madness before the rebirth. Everyone's afraid of being too much, too intense, too passionate, too emotional. But no one's afraid of being too little, too quiet, too numb, too forgettable. Maybe it's time you stop fearing your fire and start fearing your cage. Because while you've been walking on eggshells, trying not to scare anyone off, you've been scaring off yourself. Diluting your power into a version of you that fits in nicely with a broken system. And for what? Approval, comfort, survival. Is that all you're built for? You're going to lose people. You're going to be misunderstood. They'll call it overreacting. They'll call it instability. But maybe it's just honesty. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's the version of you that no longer wants to pretend pain doesn't hurt. You don't owe the world a diluted version of your truth. You don't have to be digestible. You're not a product. You're not an algorithm. You're a storm, a pulse, a force that doesn't need permission to take up space. There's a version of waiting. One that's wild, unfiltered, unapologetic. One that's tired of shrinking. One that's ready to burn it all down just to build something real from the ashes. You know they're going to talk. You know they'll mock the process. Let them. That's how you know you're getting close. Because nothing terrifies the mediocre more than someone who's stopped asking for permission to feel alive. So go ahead. Shatter the mirrors they built for you. Speak the words you buried in politeness. Laugh too loud, cry too hard, show up messy, but show up real. Because once you do, there's no turning back. Oh, you want to survive, do you? Cute. Let's talk about survival then, not the polished kind with books and lectures and Pinterest quotes. No, I mean the kind that leaves bite marks on your soul. The kind that makes your heartbeat sound like a warning siren at 3 a.m. The kind that doesn't look like triumph, but more like dragging yourself through glass with a grin, while the world keeps asking, why aren't you more positive? Because that's the trick, isn't it? Smile while you're bleeding. Dress your wounds like they're accessories. Perform your pain so people don't get too uncomfortable. You've been taught to silence your instincts. Every time your gut screams, you soothe it with logic. Every time. Your soul flinches, you call it overthinking. Every time something stinks of danger, you light a candle and pray the scent covers the rot. But you feel it, don't you? That whisper in your chest that says something isn't right. That itch under your skin that says they're lying. That voice you ignore because it doesn't sound professional or polite. Let's be honest, your intuition has been screaming itself hoarse, but you're still out here asking strangers for directions to places only your bones understand. Look around, everyone's pretending. Walking around with masks so thick even they forget who's behind them. They call it socializing, networking, being civil. But what it really is, survival theater. And you've been cast as the supporting act in your own damn life, clapping for others, cheering for people who wouldn't notice if you vanished, sacrificing your peace to avoid conflict. But at what cost? You think surviving means being light? Think again. Survival doesn't come with applause. It comes with scars. It comes with making hard choices in silence. It comes with losing people who only love the watered-down version of you. There's a war happening, and it's not on the news. It's in your mind, your habits, your mirrors. You keep telling yourself you're fine, but your dreams are shriveling. You keep saying it's okay, but your soul is cracking like old paint. You've confused numbness for peace, comfort for happiness, compliance for safety. You keep shrinking, folding, disappearing, and wonder why you feel hollow. Maybe because you've been feeding everyone else with your light and leaving yourself in the dark. But here's the part they don't prepare you for. When you start listening to yourself, everything breaks. The lies fall apart. The roles collapse. The relationships based on your silence, they shatter. And yes, it's terrifying. You'll want to crawl back. You'll miss the comfort of the cage, the predictability of pretending. But that's when you know it's working. That's the detox. That's the beginning of waking up. Because survival isn't about blending in. It's about choosing yourself when it's the most dangerous option on the table. They'll say you've changed, that you're cold, dramatic, difficult. Good. That means they can't manipulate you with the same old tricks. That means your yes now has weight, that your no actually sticks. Let them call you unstable. Let them flinch when you stop laughing at the jokes that punch down. Let them whisper when you no longer bend over backwards to soothe their egos. That's not weakness, that's evolution. You were never meant to live in a constant state of apology, apologizing for your tone, your dreams, your pace, your pain. You've been taught to make yourself small so others feel big. But you're not a comfort object. You're not a doormat in a polite shade of beige. You're a storm they tried to package as a drizzle. But guess what? Drizzles don't shake the ground. Drizzles don't birth revolutions. You're meant to be inconvenient, loud, uncontrollable. Not everyone deserves front row access to your chaos. Not everyone can handle the unedited version of you. And that's not your problem. The world doesn't get to decide how you heal, how you fight, how you rebuild. You get to choose what survival looks like. Maybe it's messy. Maybe it's ugly. Maybe it doesn't make sense to anyone but you. Perfect. That's real survival. The kind that leaves bruises and wisdom. The kind that doesn't fit into Instagram captions. The kind that tastes like blood and freedom all at once. You don't owe anyone a palatable version of your comeback. You don't have to survive quietly, shatter loudly, burn bright. Let them watch. Let them choke on the smoke while you breathe again for the first time in years. You ever notice how they tell you to be patient? Wait your turn. Stay calm. Good things come to those who wait, they say. But what if the line never moves? What if your name keeps sinking lower every time you step closer? That's the joke, isn't it? This illusion of fairness, this dangling carrot of reward for being obedient, silent, predictable. They've turned patience into sedation. You're not waiting, you're being held. They love it when you wait. The longer you sit, the easier it is to control you. You stop asking. You stop questioning. You convince yourself that maybe you're not ready. Maybe you need more time, more pain, more proof. You pace the same 4 feet of floor, calling it growth. But deep down, you're not growing, you're decaying. Quietly, politely, with a smile. Waiting doesn't make you, makes you noble. Makes you invisible. And oh, they love invisible people, easy to ignore, easier to use. They'll never tell you this, but the door you're waiting to be opened, it was never locked, never even closed, just painted to look like a wall. But nobody checks, they just sit, hoping someone with a clipboard and a kind smile will come tap them on the shoulder and say, "It's your time now." And if that tap never comes, then what? You rot where you are, still dressed for the opportunity that never arrives, still rehearsing for a scene that's not even in the script anymore. You want to know something funny? The moment you stop waiting, they get nervous. When you stop asking for permission, they start calling you arrogant. When you kick the door instead of knocking, they say you're unstable. But you're not unstable. You're awake. You finally realize that the line isn't real, that the schedule was made up, that the people in charge are just scared gatekeepers guarding an empty room. And once you really see it, you can't go back to waiting like a good little soldier. They'll say you're rushing, that you're skipping steps, that you're breaking rules, but those rules weren't written for you. They were written to keep you out, to exhaust you, to tame you. You want proof. Look around. Look at the ones who skipped the line. The ones with the loud voices, the sharp elbows, the ability to walk into a room like they own it, even when they don't. Nobody gave them permission. They took it. And while you were waiting for a turn, they were carving out space with their bare hands and crooked smiles. You think you're not ready. You think you need more time. That's the script they gave you. Scribbled in the margins, too emotional, not experienced, needs to earn it. Earn what exactly? Their validation. Their blessing. Why do you need their blessing to be who you already are? You've been forged in fire, not some.